The thoughts in our heads will never feel the same again, 'cause I've always been wrong from the start. The pain in my muscles, the taste of blood in my mouth, the memories I can't get out. And I don't wanna think about the time you met my family last spring. And I don't wanna walk by that old coffee shop again, 'cause maybe I've been feeling just fine, but I can't.
Hello everyone. My name is Dakota Frandsen. Some of you know me as the specialist of the strange. Others, the host of the Bald and Bonkers show and CEO of the Bald and Bonkers Network LLC. I've tried recording this video on a couple of occasions, but either something diverted my attention, or I didn't realize until after the recording was done that absolutely no sound was captured. For what reasons? Well, improper planning on my part, most likely. But yeah, all jokes. I wanted to essentially piece together some sort of reflections video. As many of you know, I recently attended the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection 2023 down in Orlando, Florida. And as some of you may have known from seeing the other live videos I did, just to kind of give journalistic updates from the conference itself, I started to get a bit emotional. I truly did. I'm not gonna deny it. But from when I finally said goodbye to many of the new friends I gathered, as well as finally getting to meet in person the one friend I was hoping to see the most, from there to my rides to the airport and soaring through the air as I raced across the country back home, and even a little bit as I was at work last night. Yeah, I pretty much went straight from the airport at my final destination, stopped to grab something to eat, and then still had another 2-hour drive. I basically had a couple hours to change my clothes, hop in a good shower, and head straight into the civilian job. And as many of you learned, I do not kid when I say how big I am. So, getting to sleep in the back of a car or in an airplane gets to be a little bit more difficult for someone like me. Not impossible, but it has to be a moment where sleep deprivation outweighs the discomfort. But that's all minor. That's all minor compared to what I was trying to accomplish this past weekend. And I've realized in multiple dimensions, if you will, it gave me a lot to think about. Helped learn quite a bit I finally got to meet someone in person I've been very eager to see for some time now. Got to see a dear friend in person, though we didn't get much of a chance to sit and have an appropriate conversation. But nevertheless, it was amazing to finally get to see them. The purpose of this video is sort of a final reflections on my part. Today is October 24th, 2023. I am recording this at 11:42 a.m. Mountain Time. This coming episodes of the Bald and Bonkers show will likely try to arrange it to where we can invite people who are also at the conference to share their inputs, their stories. Try to get to say hello to some of the people I didn't get to meet appropriately. As for me, it was an interesting journey. And some of you who have followed me for a while may have wondered if I had visitors while I was down there. This is what I'm here to tell you. I shared a little bit during the live journals, but it was a matter of trying to process everything that happened, because even though strange events have occupied my life for pretty much as long as I can remember, and even beyond that, I'm fairly new still when it comes to acknowledging and being able to confront it appropriately. What brought me to GSIC 2023 was, well, simply put, there was someone I knew who was going to be in attendance I really wanted to see. Not including some of the speakers who happened to be on my show, and we've already had a little bit of a pre-exchange because of that. For the little over a year, there's been this young lady I've been corresponding with, talking on and off with, mostly through text messages, just to accommodate both of our busy schedules, that I've tried to keep a close eye on, because this young lady happened to be connected to my life within the Galactic Federation. And this isn't something I'm saying just as a feeling. There's a paper trail to prove it, or at least acknowledge that something truly extraordinary has taken place. For those of you who don't know, maybe seeing this video for the first time, or just found out about me from the conference, or whatever your situation may be, before coming to Earth, if you wanted to put a label on my situation, I was a Tal Shiar Pleiadian who was recruited within the Galactic Federation of Worlds as a sort of field medic scientist. One of my commanders was none other than Thorhan Iridian. And one of the many tasks that I have indulged upon was assisting in the rescue of abducted children. One of the last missions I flew before I took on the envoy deployment that allows you to see this person here took place at least within the late 80s, maybe early 90s. I remember coming off of a ship in a smaller pod with a small crew. We were moving fast. One of the main landmarks that I recall seeing during those speeds was the Great Lakes here in the United States. I won't divulge much more information on that, just to respect the privacy of this young lady. While, yes, technically this is my story to tell, it is hers as well. And it's not my place to divulge things that she may not be comfortable with. But back to the story. I remember coming about this white two-story house. I place it within the late 80s, early 90s because my only frame of reference of when this event took place was some of the newest looking cars, ones that look like they just came off the lot, were about late 80s, early 90s models. Roughly about that time frame. I am not a car guy, so I wouldn't be able to specify much more than that, but they had that kind of boxy design, when cars were still made to take a beating. I remember standing back outside this house and monitoring. Whether it was through a drone or not, I don't exactly recall. That part of it didn't seem important enough to really stick out in this instance, but it was also not the purpose of recalling this particular event. Focus. Thank you. Yelling at my camera. How should I put this? There was a small crew. If I remember correctly, about 5 or 6 of us. We waited outside this house because we needed to watch for something. And very quickly, these 2 taller grays, Matra, likely, if I recall correctly, were walking out. One of them had this little girl over their shoulder. This little girl had on like a bright red dress. And it was kind of those designs you would see right around Christmas time. But anyway, I remember the crew all having to keep themselves in check. People make the mistake that these ETs, that they're some sort of grand enlightened beings. They're going to have this almost regal sort of posture. Many do, but also in many ways, they are just as human as you and I. They feel, they love, they get upset, they hunger, they bleed when they're cut. In many ways, at least in my experience, they may even be more human than us. I'd be willing to say that. We had to keep each other in check because the second we saw that little girl, most of us, we wanted to attack then and there. There was this mentality, it's like, those motherfuckers. But many of us had to help keep each other in check to avoid compromising the mission. I remember feeling this anger when I saw one of those beings run their finger over the girl's body. I remember clenching my fists and practically gritting my teeth. We watched them carry this young girl into a ship, which we quickly snuck upon. The Tal Shiar, their own militaries are highly specialized within infiltration and stealth operations. This is why my home world was essentially part of a rogue faction that joined with the Sikars. It was a power move. And officials from that world fell for it. Fell for the trap. I was one of many who defected. The reasons why, in my particular case, are a story for another time. With this little girl, we made sure to get to the ship, and once we got to a certain point above the Earth's atmosphere, we attacked. It was a matter of jurisdiction. We could run stealth operations on Earth, but we could not do anything and make any big moves. We couldn't attack these beings then and there. It was almost like a matter of jurisdiction. Once they were outside the planet's orbit, we were able to go. We managed to save the little girl. Got her the medical attention she needed. Helped her kind of calm down, and even took her for a little bit of a joyride before bringing her back home. When the mission was completed, it must have been one of the last ones I flew before taking on this envoy deployment that you see before you. Because I recall standing on deck of this major ship, possibly the one known as the Excelsior. In fact, very much likely. Just observing the Earth. I remember just watching it and pondering about things, whether or not the mission was worth it, whether or not that little girl or any of the others we saved were going to be okay, whether or not this mission was going to be worth it. These were thoughts many of us had, and once the operations, the jobs were at least settled, many of us tried our best to be there for one another. To remind each other that there is a reason we took part. As I'm standing there kind of reflecting on matters, I see this taller man approach me. Now, mind you, I'm 6'7". This guy is actually really close to my height. Remember, he had very chiseled facial structures, long blonde hair, good-looking man. I'll say it. Very physically fit, and he had this authority in how he carried himself. Just basing it on looks, he was also from the Pleiades star cluster, but not from the same planet as me. He was an Anhel Pleiadian. Where he's from and where I'm from didn't exactly get along all the best. Excuse me. But aboard the Excelsior, we came to know one another. We became friends. This man, he was well known for taking care of his people. He was quickly well liked and respected by just about everybody who knew him, as I recall. And well deserving of his current positions. No, he is all very humble. Doesn't like to brag. He walks up to me just to check in, see how I'm doing. Notices where my mind's sitting at. And we get to talking. I express the concerns that I already said, just thinking about all those kids. Are they going to be okay? The conversation did not take place in English, but in the recall session that allowed me to remember this. It was like I could hear the native tongue, but I could hear it being translated in real time, which is part of their technology. They do have universal translator chips that many operators have in order to be able to speak and understand each other without having to take extensive language courses. But then again, up there, their educational systems, their ways of learning, they're pretty quick to pick up on new languages. This man and I got to talk, and he was doing his best to reassure me that everything will be all right. In many ways, he shared the same thoughts, same concerns. We all did. But we also had to know within our hearts that very soon, and perhaps even quicker than any of us would realize, events would need to transpire as they naturally could. But in the end, while there was going to be a lot of insanity, in the end it was going to mean something. I'm just looking at him and saying, I know, I knew that I was getting ready for an envoy deployment, so part of me was also wondering, would I be able to find these kids to check up on them? Just to make sure they're doing okay. The man laughs a little bit and says, don't worry, you're gonna see her. Just remember the moose. First time I started looking funny, then he brings up his 3 fingers like this. This is how they tend to work with the mind fog, as it will. They don't necessarily wipe the memories, they just help suppress them deep enough to where they're very difficult to detect if an individual is captured or compromised. All the memories are still there. They just have a extensive knowledge about various species physiologies, anatomy and physiologies, that they knew how to suppress it, but it would not be out of reach. So upon seeing this and moving it towards where my third eye would be, I jerk my head back and say, "Hey, what are you doing? I want to be able to remember all this." Again, he laughs and just says, "Just remember the moose. You know this is standard procedure where you're going on an envoy deployment. Just remember the moose." After the recall session, I immediately jerked up because I knew who it was. My friend that I was wanting to see at the conference, be able to meet in person for the very first time. In her works, she refers to herself as Damocles. And for the sake of this recording, that's how we'll refer to her as. I know she's going to be trying to get her stuff back up and going, so little plug for her. I initially came across Damocles scrolling through TikTok, of all things. Some of her content was brought up in my suggestions, and for some reason it just caught my interest. She put her materials together very well. I was rather impressed. Started looking through the rest of the videos. Was rather impressed with how it all came together. And I saw that seeds were already planted to make something even bigger out of it. But those plans kind of got put on hold due to personal matters that came up. After a few days had gone by, I watched her content. I sent her an email saying, "Hey, inviting her on for a show. I was really impressed with the stuff that she had put together. Be more than happy to, would love to bring you or someone that works with you on board the show to discuss it, help get your work out there." She references the work of Elena Denot several times. So I knew she was a fan. And luckily enough for me, Elena was scheduled for another Bald and Bonkers appearance that very same weekend. So I made sure I name dropped her. I did. I'm not gonna hide it. I said, "Oh, by the way, I saw that you're a fan of Elena Denon. She's actually a friend, and she's actually going to be coming on the show this weekend if you're interested." She said she was more than welcome to. She would love to come on, and that she was looking forward to seeing what Elena said. With that show, we ended it on a bit of a high note because this was as I was starting to come around to finding out about my star family. My actual wife and kids, who all, my understanding, all have some sort of positions within the Galactic Federation of Worlds, because where we call home technically isn't still technically isn't safe. It's safer now, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I was told not too long ago that their visits may not be as frequent because they gotta go. They got a job to do. Anyway, I'll go more into that later. That particular session with Elena Denon ended up being one of our more popular ones due to a question I asked her at the end of the show. That being, if someone goes on an envoy deployment and is already married within that life, would they technically be cheating if they've had significant others during the life that they've essentially inhabited while on the Starseed /Envoy program? Damocles was one of the many that thought this was a good question, but rather hilarious. I think there's actually quite a few people that were surprised I even asked that. So this helped bring her into the loop. Then we actually had her on the show, and it was very intriguing. She also disclosed an interest within the CE5 protocols established by Dr. Stephen Greer, which was something we were experimenting on early on in the show just to see what would happen. Being that she expressed an interest, we did a little bit of a session with a twist. That twist was me utilizing a device known as a spirit box, which essentially is like a random noise generator, that if you go to utilize in whatever situation and all of a sudden you're getting full words, full sentences that seem to directly respond to any questions you may be asking or anything that's actually going on in the environment around you, you may have contact with something. This was a way to add a little bit more communications to these CE5 endeavors. And in my own personal experiments, tend to produce very interesting results. So just trying to adjust the green screen here. Gotta figure this out a little better. Anyway. During the session, I kept hearing this woman's name over and over again. Damocles had never disclosed her real name to me or Christopher, though I was the only one who had any real extensive communications with her. Immediately, I asked, "Who is blah da 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 da?" And right then and there, her eyes start to widen a bit, and she's leaning closer towards the screen, saying, "What did you just say?" I start hearing in the noise something along the lines of, "You've already met her. You know her. That's da 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 da." Then I realized from her reaction and what I was hearing, that was actually her name. A couple other names came up that piqued interest that applied to her, so to make a long story short, that incident was enough to convince her that I and somewhat Chris were in fact the real deal. We weren't some knuckleheads trying to act like we knew what was going on. We actually had some sort of extensive knowledge and experience with dealing with these types of incidents. After the show, she wanted to disclose what she believed was a screen memory, was where she was taken out of a house while wearing a bright red Christmas dress and riding a bucking moose. She felt that in her research, that this was possibly some sort of screen memory because certain things didn't add up. Moose don't necessarily buck. Their size, they don't have to. But I digress. She's always felt that something was off about that, what she thought was a dream. Then she noticed that she started to take up a bit more of a unique personality after that incident took place, as if she was just freshly exposed to something that caught her attention. But she couldn't necessarily figure out why. Fast forward the story a bit more. I had that recall on top of learning that my Pleiadian name, for lack of a better label, was Elarian. I had a good idea of what I looked like, and the blonde man I mentioned from the recall session where I rescued that little girl looked damn near spot on to Elena's drawings. That woman is a fantastic artist. So naturally, before I moved any further, I needed to check with the one person in this cosmos who would be able to validate, but I also needed to have her approach it to where she was still somewhat blind to the situation in order to prevent potential contamination. I know she preaches that we should follow our gut. We already know the truth inside of us, but I'm big about having some sort of evidence to kind of corroborate the things I talk about. So how I approached it was I sent Elena an email saying, "Hey, I don't want to, bother you too much. I know you're a busy gal, but I was wondering if either you or maybe you can check with Thorhan if you knew somebody named Alarian. He was likely a tall Pleiadian, wore kind of a bright silver suit, and it seemed like he worked with Thorhan at some point." That wasn't the exact message I left, but it was the essential gist. A little while later, I get a reply that almost made me put my feet through the bottom of a car I was riding in. I was sharing a vehicle with a relative because our work schedules are similar enough to where if one of us has car troubles and our car's at the mechanics, we could be able to share a vehicle and, not have to compromise, work hours. Makes the drive home a little bit longer, but, we got to do what we got to do. In this reply, Elena said that yes, Alarian was a real person that Thorhan worked with. That I described him almost perfectly, that I wasn't crazy. I then followed up with, well, here's the thing. In a sort of a recall session, that was a name I've got that was supposed to be Alarian's me. I wanted to ask because I also found a recall of an abduction rescue and wanted to check with you before I shared with one of the children Thorhan and I rescued that this was the case. I wanted to get a little extra validation. So do you know about how long ago? I think it was... I told her that the abduction would have taken a little over 30 years ago. She replied again saying, that actually lines up to what Thorhan was saying. He said that he hadn't seen Alarian in over 20 years. I'm 27. I was born January 1996. Boom, 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 boom. The dominoes fell. Once I had this validation from Elena, I knew that it would be highly unlikely to find anything else more that would further back that something genuinely did happen. This is why we believe this was the case, but it can still technically be open to interpretation. So, next opportunity I had, I reached out to Damocles. Told her that in my own recall situations, I may have found something big in regards to her screen memory. She goes and messaged me. She's like, what is it? Do you want to schedule a video call? I was like, yeah, this is pretty big. It might be best to have kind of somewhat of a face-to-face. It would be much more efficient to do it that way. So we scheduled a voice call. I believe it was for later that weekend. A video chat. And I told her everything. And I made sure to build it up, too. I shared the recall of the abduction rescue. Described the house, the location, about what time of year it looked. And the more I got into it, the closer she would get to the screen. Had she been able to, she probably would have jumped through the computer screen if she could. You know what I mean? Then I went further into it. She's like, oh my God. It was blowing her mind. I was able to find out that she had always suspected something had happened to her, but now someone's coming forward and saying, yeah, something happened. And here's what. She's like, oh my God, how did you find out about this? It's like, there's more. The leading officer of that rescue mission was a tall, blonde Pleiadian man by the name of Thorhan Iridian. And there was also a medical officer on that particular team by the name of Alarian. Alarian Tinirta, or something along those lines, as far as pronunciation. She's, again, her eyes even widen more when I go to tell her that I personally checked with Elena before bringing this to you because I wanted to be absolutely sure that I had something. She still started asking me, who's Alarian? I am. From that moment, I swore I could see this release of energy from her. That she had some sort of validation that something happened to her. She's always suspected it, and from personal details she's told me, it does kind of ring true that something's happened to her. But she wasn't exactly sure what. From then on, I became a little bit more dedicated in, checking in on her from time to time. See if anything new come up now that she had that revelation, but personal life matters seemed to keep getting in the way. And that's okay. It's her ride. We just happened to cross paths. And she was someone that I was really hoping to meet in person, because while she ended up playing a part in my story and I hers, I was genuinely wondering what would happen if we met in person. Between her, Elena, Danny Henderson, Nikki Allen, Jean-Charles Moyen, Tony Rodriguez, and Melanie Carres. Slowly more information started coming forward in my mind about certain things. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the conference. I did. And for those of you wondering about any potential visitations from my connections to the stars, my wife and my children, yeah, they've come by. The first night after the session with Nikki Allen, I remember a brief get-together where I saw my wife mostly. Kids were off doing their own thing, but I had to see my wife. I have these incidents noted in a recall journal that Tony recommended that I start keeping to try to help piece things together a bit more. Tony Rodriguez. So that I can further explore this down the line. Saturday night on disco night, I felt bad because I left Damocles at the disco. I started kind of getting these tones playing in my head that I've learned to acknowledge that more or less someone was calling and I needed to go. My son managed to drop by. He was in a ship and he really wanted to see me. And there was also kind of this vibe to him that something was going on and he really needed to talk to his dad. So when he came by, he said, he did. He was looking at me and said, "Hey, Dad, you want to go for a ride? You know, maybe surprise some of the people at the event you're at?" It's like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go. We went off for a joyride in a ship. He and I were both piloting at times, occasionally doing little maneuvers here and there. Just having some fun. Then afterwards, we got to calm down a little bit. And I started to realize a little bit more that something was weighing pretty heavy on him. He goes, "Dad, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty important." I was like, "All right, what's going on? You know you can talk to me." You start going into the conversation. I don't remember the exact words that were being said, but there was a part of him that was essentially he was saying, "You do know that we love you, right?" Second I heard those words, it started to hit me. I knew something big was up. It was, of course, I love you guys. It was, I'm generalizing here to try to keep this video somewhat short, but he goes, "We know, Dad. We know. And we know that you want to be able to see us. You know that we're coming, right? It's going to happen very soon, but you know that we have rules that we need to abide by for now." Saying, "I know, I'm aware. But yeah, also got to realize that doesn't also change the fact that I love and I miss you guys." Saying, he said, "Trust me, Dad, I know." You said it yourself. We wanted to come see you just as bad as you wanted to come see us. All of us tried to take the first opportunity we get to come see you. Yes. You know, Mom cries for you, right? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, she cries for you. We all do. She feels everything you feel. We all do. And no, it's not because of anything that they put on us to help do the job. We don't need it. We know how much you talk about us. We know how much you miss us. And we miss you. We want nothing more to be down there. And I'm sorry that we had to follow these rules, but you've done work yourself. You know how it is up here. He and I both started to cry. I simply told him, like, listen to me. I know. I feel you guys too. Every time you come down. And had you not been willing to step in, your mom, your sisters, you, I know that I probably would have already been back home by now. You guys are the ones that gave me strength. There's people that joke that, you know, I'm down here on Earth, I'm supposed to live an Earth life, you know, have relationships down here, which I've had, but now that I know about you guys, I know that you're real, you're coming soon. You also had to realize that when you know you have someone in your life that is willing to put things on the line to fight to make sure you're okay, that is not someone you ever betray. And I know I fucked up in my life. Done some pretty nasty shit. And if anything, that's a part of what ate me alive, finding out about you guys. Because I knew I started to stray from a promise I kept to be the father and husband you guys deserve. It's like, I know, Dad. And we forgave you. We're still here, aren't we? I need you to know that. We forgave you. We saw that you've been trying to do better, be better. And you have become better. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to come up here. I said, I know, son. I know. But as much as I know that in my heart, nothing ever escapes how much I miss you guys. And yeah, As much as I would love for a family photo, an actual family photo of us all together, to show that you're real and that how much you guys mean to me. I know we have to do things, and I already swore to you, your mom, your sisters, that whatever this fucking takes, I'm riding this till the end. You need my help with something, you find me, come get me. I'll be there. We're fucking family. And that's what families do. I don't care about the grand mission. I already know it's going in the right way. That this all is going to pay off. I don't care about disclosure. I don't care about notoriety. I just want to be who you deserve. He looks at me and says, I know, Dad. You're making Mom cry. He says, I wanted you to know that. Because I see that some of your old habits do leak out from time to time, but you're getting better about catching them. And why it is you do them. So that's good. At least I can notice. At least you noticed. So yeah, Dad, we know. But I also wanted to prepare you for something. I said, what's that? You're gonna want to get ready for another trip soon. You might get to go home. It's like, wait, it's like, rumor is you're gonna get to go home very soon. I can't tell you exactly when, you know how it works up here, but the family you left behind, you're gonna go get to see them again. They're okay. They're still okay. They're up there. They know about me. They know about Mom. They know. They can't wait to see you again. Soon, Talia is gonna be freed, and I'm gonna get to go home. It's not quite over, so not like that. But Talia is gonna be freed soon. I'm gonna get to go home. And once those avenues are free again, there might be a choice that I have to make. But we'll make it as a family. That's when he sent me back. That's when I got brought back. He was, And ironically, I go to check my phone the next morning. I'm back, and someone at the conference got a photo of us flying. You can't tell. We were far enough. You can't tell it's us, but somebody caught a picture of us flying. That's why they've been busy. It's almost to the end, ladies and gentlemen. As for GSIC, it was an awesome opportunity. I wish I brought more books to have signed so I could try to talk to people a little bit more one-on-one. I bought Tony Rodriguez books and managed to get him to sign one. But at the same time, I also try to make it so I can get through security at the event at airport quicker. You know, it's pretty sad when a big guy like me can move faster than through security checkpoints a lot than some of you short people. Oh dear Lord. Sorry for getting upset, but this event was something else. It was something else. And to Danny Henderson, Elena Denon, Tony Rodriguez, Nikki Allen, Dr. Christine Northrup, Brad Olson, Jimmy Wills, Dan Winter, Dan Willis, Karina, Melody, Jean Charles, everybody who was there, all the speakers. I loved every single one of your presentations, Danny. Thank you for putting something like this together. Post-travel blues always hit me hard, but for reasons I just explained, this one was a little bit harder. But in a good way. Events like these are important. To be able to connect without judgment, without reason, just to be there, enjoy the moment, connect with people. That's what this is all about. Y'all, Dawn, Tina, Angela, Gail, all y'all that approached me, thanks for the love. I'm not used to people recognizing me for the show. And to everyone who I didn't get a chance to see, I'm sorry. You're more than welcome to reach out to me anytime. I'll try to get to your messages. Just remember, I'm a busy guy. And I'll definitely try to get some of the speakers on the show again. Or at least the ones that we haven't had yet. That Karina, I like her fire. And Elena, I wouldn't have been able to push everything as far as I have had that woman not stepped in. I said it before, I'll say it again. I feel like I owe that woman some flowers. Danny Henderson, I wasn't kidding when I said you remind me of my grandmother. She's another very hard-headed and kind of outspoken woman, but I've also learned through her that a woman that with that type of energy has a big heart, and I got to see that personally. So, again, thank you. If I said, I don't know. Hey, when it comes to GSIC 2024, wherever it ends up being, I'm there. You can count on that. Damocles, if you happen to catch this, I know we'll get to talk more. Like I said, the offers for you to kind of use Bald and Bonker's stuff to be able to help get your stuff up and going those are still wide open. You're more than welcome to. And anybody else who's interested, just check out baldenbonkers.net. I know some of you are bothered by the channel getting monetized, but it costs money to make things happen, unfortunately, and I promise to do some good with it. There's the Indiegogo campaign to help bring Bald and Bonkers TV Plus. Try to bring an uncensored platform. Yes, there might be a little bit of a subscription fee, but I plan on getting it to where that can go out to Roku, Android, iPhones. I want to get this as far as wide as possible. The whole thing about Bald and Bonkers Network and all it shows is to help get the conversations going, help get people their stories out there, to talk and to connect and be able to share without judgment, without hesitation. Have a fucking few laughs just to bring down the fucking barriers. There's been times when the system's been tested, but 2 years, we're still going strong. 2 years since the show started. The second anniversary of when it became an official company, it comes up in April, so we'll have something there. Again, Indiegogo, guys. There's a series of various different perks. There's like subscription base, as well as get your name on a thank you video that's going to be put together once it launches. If you go for one of those perks, you can get add-on perks of like exclusive t-shirts, posters. I'll see what I can do about getting Bald and Bonkers books on there as well. Get them personalized for you. So that'll be a nice little touch. And honestly, with this conference, the things that that got talked about, the things between, like I said, Elena Denon, Tony Rodriguez, Nikki Allen, John Charles Moyen, Danny Henderson, and Melly Caress the most. I finally figured out how I'm going to put together the book that y'all would keep asking me. I mean, hell, I had one gal so entranced by my story, she almost knocked herself over on the sidewalk and probably would have cracked her head. Oops! But things are going to happen. The book I'm going to put out is, I know you won't believe me. I figured that's a good way to approach it. There's going to be stuff I haven't talked about before, kind of hinted around a little bit before, but never really got into detail. Because, I'll be honest, my story is a long, ongoing saga, and there's days where I'm a better writer than I am a speaker. Much love to you all. I had an amazing time this weekend. I won't forget it. I'm sorry for those who I didn't, get the chance to, talk to, or, maybe got a glance, but, feel free to reach out, The doors of Bald and Bonkers will always remain open for those crazy enough to walk in. So again, much love. If I forgot any names, I'm sorry, but I honestly can't put into words how much this trip meant to me. I wanted to thank, my mother and my grandmother for, hotel rides, as well as helping cover the hotel room so I at least had some place to sleep. I love every single one of you. If you have not had someone tell you that today, I love you. Lots of really cool stuff are coming forward. I feel renewally energized and inspired to keep pushing. So, you ain't seen the last of me yet. Much love, take care, and I will see you.